started building Solana, the company, at the tail end of the last bull market, and just saw ETH drop 70% in front of me, and like while we were trying to raise money. So, and then having 2 years of like nothing, right? And like just
did you raise any money? So are you like one of the companies now who's raised the money and you're just building through the winter? Did you raise money back in 2018, 17?
Basically, right. We raised money in April 2018, which was already ETH had dropped from its high by about 40%. But there was still a lot of, what that bull market created is a lot of folks that invested in the ETH ICO. They were smart engineers. They weren't funds yet. And that bull market for Ethereum, a lot of those literally Ethereum folks funded Solana. Despite what many people think, it wasn't like some shadowy cabal of venture capital. It was a bunch of like engineers who thought that what we were building was kind of crazy and kind of cool. So that was really, I think, what Ethereum created.
So you raised the money in April 2018, starting to become a difficult market. You launch in what, March 2020?
Yeah, right in the worst possible, what we thought the worst possible time, but ended up being the best possible time, because that literally marked the bottom. That like COVID and the stock market crashing and Bitcoin was literally like, I think we couldn't have timed it better, I guess.
And did you find that building over that 2018-19 period was good because there was less distraction about the tokens, or indifferent?
It was hard. It was hard. We were working a lot, under-resourced, always stressed about runway. And you were never sure if this was going to work or not. And it was a lot more stressful, I'd say. Stress is important, right? It's not you as a founders coming into the space right now is a really good time to come in, despite the stress, right? Like, I think the problem with the bull market is that you may raise a lot of money, but you will not get signal that you have product market fit and you're building something right. And when the bull market crashes, a lot of those companies may be dead or underwater and not fundable, because all they did was raise a bunch of capital, but not create growth or PMF. And what really drives the next round is growth, not how much you raised in the previous round, and not your valuation in the previous round.
No, it's all about adoption in the end. I mean, without it, you've got nothing. You might have the best tech in the world. If you don't get adoption, you've not got anything. We've seen this over and over again.
The great thing in the bear market, your adoption is relative to everyone else. If you're the only company that has like the users, right, even if it's small number, that may actually be enough to get to like raise enough capital to stretch things out until like things really pick up.
And so, look, fascinating to talk to you. I really appreciate your time. And let's try and get through this bear market and let's see what comes out the other side of it.
For sure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, not at all. Anatoly, great to get you on Real Vision. I've been after this for a while. I want to give a bit of your background, your crypto journey, and how the hell you decided to come up with the whole idea and the basis of Solana. I know you probably told us a few times, but there's a lot of people who watch this.
Yeah, for sure. The origin story. So I spent most of my career at Qualcomm. I was there, from 2003 until like 2015. When I started, I was working on like those flip phones, 2 megabyte devices, like the really dinky things. But I ended up lead kernel engineer in this platform called Brew, which was built by Qualcomm, and it was the first thing that ever had like any kind of developable traction. And I remember there was this application, Jammed at Bowling, that hit like 2 million app downloads, and this was maybe 2008 or something like that, 2005, before the iPhone. And like 3 years later, iPhone came out and just killed everything. So I was there, like, I think in the most exciting part of the mobile industry, and 2017 rolled around, and I saw that fees on Bitcoin were really like going to like $60-$70 per transaction. So Bitcoin conferences stopped taking Bitcoin to buy tickets, which is kind of funny.
But why did you care about Bitcoin at this point?
I heard about it as an engineer, like in the early days. I tried mining it a bit with CPUs, thought about like building my own like GPU mining and stuff. But as soon as I would kind of get interested in like building something for it, somebody else would have already came out with it. You know, like there was an ASIC project that promised to ship people dedicated ASICs, but they kept them for themselves for like 6 months and mined all the advantage with them, and then they shipped them. That was like I thought that was like a very pure crypto experience. You can't get better than that.
Rug pulled by them.
Yeah, in the early days, basically. But like what I thought was really interesting in 2017 was Ethereum because of the smart contract side, and it really reminded me of like early mobile days. Nobody thought that mobile phones should be computers and they should run apps. People thought that they were voice only. Very similar kind of thing there. I kind of saw it as a new way for developers to write a new kind of code. Smart contracts just were weird and interesting, and like it didn't make sense what they were good at, but I kind of thought that they were good at something. And that's what like kind of got me way more interested in crypto than anything else. And I had a side project with a friend of mine, later became one of the co-founders, mining crypto in the background while we were building deep learning hardware. And I had 2 coffees and a beer with him at Cafe Soleil in San Francisco. And we're talking about mining and proof of work and consensus. And I had this eureka moment that there's a way to generate proofs for time. And I didn't know what to Google, but these are called verifiable delay functions. Had I known how to find these things, Solana probably would have never happened, because I would have found that like amazingly smart folks out of Stanford have been working on these things forever. But I thought that I had something, and that was really what spurred me to go. And I literally like called a bunch of my friends for Qualcomm that worked with me on Brew. I was like, this is a chance to build another platform, a new kind of operating system, and let's go do it. And surprisingly, a bunch of them joined me. These were like super senior folks with 10 plus years of experience. It's pretty rare for them to like, leave their 10-year jobs. But at that time, Broadcom was trying to acquire Qualcomm. Morale was slow. Literally, the CEO had to call President Trump to stop the acquisition. So it was like perfect timing on my part. And a lot of amazing folks joined, and we built Solana.
How much of your telco experience allowed you to build Solana? Because it's an easy thing to say, oh yeah, we had this idea and then we built it. The reality is never that easy, right?
A lot of the protocols felt very familiar, like the communications protocols, because you are dealing with massive number of states and connections and users anytime you're dealing with like LTE or CDMA or anything like that. It's just, those are, I would say, more complicated than consensus. And it just felt like similar, like we were like not out of like fish out of water or anything like that. And the ways to make this network fast really were based on a lot of our experiences as engineers. We were really kind of had this idea that, this, I don't know if you heard of the trilemma. This is something that Vitalik proposed. And there's a trade-off between performance, security, and decentralization. So you can kind of make the system, you can kind of pick two. And what you mean by decentralization is the number of participants in the network. So you can, and like what you mean by security, that how hard is it to make it inconsistent? So when you have this trilemma, you're kind of picking two of these. And this trilemma really only applies if you are exceeding the bandwidth of the network. So that means that the number of, the amount of data that's being replicated through the network is limited by the connections that each one of these machines has. So if all of your machines in the network have 1 gigabit, you should be able to use all of it up. and transmit a lot of information. But Ethereum and all these other networks were not designed to use like even 100 megabits, let alone 1 gigabit or more. And us as like a bunch of Qualcomm engineers, we were like, well, we were like, 5G is 1 gigabit just cellular. That's going to force 10 gigabits to the home, 40 plus to data centers like a standard. So why don't we build a network that at least uses that much and then see what happens? That was really kind of our premise, was that a lot of the other approaches on the market were really trying to tackle the trilemma with a lot of complexity and like very academic solutions, but it wasn't clear that they would be able to solve it in such a way while making the network, cheap and fast and easy to use. And doing like the problem like kind of the old fashioned way, or the way that, a bunch of hardware engineers would do it, makes the nodes more expensive, but it definitely solves it. And if the hardware is the only expensive part, it gets cheaper every 2 years by 50%. There's always more organized sand. So that was really kind of, we thought organized, like if you can get it to, if you can get it to work with hardware, you're basically done, because the rest of the, the hardware industry is going to catch up to you.
And explains people the idiot-proof version of what proof of time is versus, proof of stake.